If you are listening to this and you are in a narcissistic relationship or you are trying to leave one and you keep asking yourself why you still haven't left, I'm going to tell you the exact answer without adding any more shame to your life. You haven't left yet because you're not dealing with a feelings problem. You are dealing with abuse plus consequences. It's emotional abuse, coercion, manipulation, control, and the constant pressure to keep the day from turning on you. It's you waking up and immediately checking the atmosphere like your body is on call, choosing your words like you're defusing something, staying quiet because you cannot afford escalation. It's planning in your head but acting normal on the outside because you already know what happens when a narcissist feels you slipping. That is risk management, and most people do not name it that way. They call you trauma bonded, weak, addicted to chaos. They tell you to just leave, like leaving is only an emotional decision. I'm not interested in that story. A lot of women aren't staying because they love him. They are staying because they are doing risk management with limited options and then get shamed like it's a character flaw. It's not. It's your nervous system tracking what happens to you when you move without leverage in an abusive household. This episode is for the woman who knows it's abuse and still wakes up in the same logistics that keep her stuck. You get clear, then get scared, and decide the fear means that you are not ready instead of what it actually means. The stakes are real. Risk management isn't love. It's your body choosing the safer option inside of abuse. If leaving would create a bigger crisis than staying, your nervous system is going to keep picking the option that lets you keep functioning. That is not romance, that is survival strategy. And yes, we are going to talk about emotional recovery because the emotional exit is real. A woman has to stabilize her nervous system and rebuild self-trust, or she will keep getting pulled back into guilt, confusion, and the need to smooth things over. But we are also going to talk about leverage because I do not separate financial autonomy from abuse recovery. It's not treating money like a bonus chapter. A lot of healing content ignores logistics, and a lot of business content assumes safety. Women get trapped between those two worlds. I do not live in that gap, and I built my work around it. I do not help women just heal from abuse. I help women become emotionally, financially, and relationally free. The emotional exit is stage 1. Leverage is stage 2. When those pieces aren't part of the conversation, women blame themselves for not moving even when their body is doing exactly what it should in a high consequence situation. I'm Meaghan Webster, an abuse recovery coach, a trauma-informed strategist, and the woman a narcissist hopes to never meet twice. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast, and today I am naming what risk management actually is, why it shows up in narcissistic relationships, and what you need to build so safe stop meaning stuck. When you can see things clearly and still not be able to make a move, it is not ignorance or denial. A lot of people will speak to you like leaving is the decision. Like you wake up, you got fed up, and then you leave. From a distance, that story sounds great. From inside of it, leaving is a series of conditions, consequences, and calculations that are not bullshit. The way that you think about leaving is different than most. It is not an easy line of thinking. You are thinking about leaving with a child, leaving a shared lease, leaving without money that's yours. Well, you're already exhausted trying to leave the person who punishes your independence. This is where I want to tell you something about my own life because I want you to understand why I refuse to shame women for not leaving yet. My marriage was my second abusive relationship. The day that I moved to New Brunswick, the first day I experienced abuse with my now ex-husband. I knew I wasn't going to stay. There was a series of events that had me stay afterwards. And that's what I mean when I say I know that moving and thinking about leaving are not the same thing. A woman can be completely clear and still not have the conditions yet. There's a lot of this where you need to be a realist, and why just leave advice makes you feel crazier. It strips out the part that matters. It ignores the escalation, financial exposure, retaliation, the fact that if you move too soon with no plan, you will end up in a worse situation. And it's not about being stupid, it's because the trap is still intact. Risk is not abstract inside narcissistic relationships. It's a Tuesday night when you already feel the mood in the house and you decide whether you're going to speak or keep it contained. It's whether you can afford groceries if he decides to punish you. Whether you can drive your own car. If you can leave a room without it becoming a problem. Let's be honest, a weak woman would not be doing this much management. I am not here to romanticize endurance. I am naming this so that you can stop being ashamed of it and start building your way out of it, because there is a big difference between being in risk management and being in risk strategy. Risk management is what your body does when the options are thin. Strategy is what happens when you build because you refuse to let your life stay thin. Before I explain why your body chooses a safer option, I want to define risk management in a way that makes sense. Risk management is not a concept. It's the way you've been living when consequences are real and you're the only one that pays them. That is not calm, it's containment. You keep your truth small because the price of being fully honest is too expensive in your house. You measure your words because you can feel the fallout before it happens. You pick timing because the wrong moment can turn a night that you may not recover from. You stop sharing plans because information becomes leverage from someone who wants control. You'll tell yourself you're not that emotional, that you're easygoing, that you don't mind. But here's what risk management can look like and feel like. You are listening for tone, for movement, for the way that the house sounds, and you start making conscious choices around that. You need to bring something up, a bill, a schedule, the kind of thing that would be a normal conversation in a normal relationship, but you run that tape through your head before you run it through him. You already know what happens if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time. So you don't say it. You adjust your plan, and you always do that. That is risk management. You start editing your life down. You choose words that will not trigger him, a tone that will not get punished. You turn a need into a question. You schedule your own life around his moods like it's normal. That's the part people don't understand when they tell you just speak up. They think it's bravery. It's actually consequences. So when you do find the timing, you'll tell yourself, I'll say it later, before dinner, after bedtime, maybe tomorrow, and then it just doesn't happen. You are not delaying this because you love him. You are delaying this because the cost of the conversation might be hours of chaos that you cannot afford today. You have kids to keep stable. You have a body that can only take so much. You have to get through the day. You will catch yourself making decisions based on fallout, not values. You will not call it that, but that's what it is. You choose the option that keeps the room calm, the one that allows your kids to sleep, the one that keeps you from being dragged into a fight where you end up apologizing for something you didn't even start. You will choose whatever option means you can still function tomorrow. Information will also become a control point. If he thinks you're thinking about work, he can sabotage it. If he knows you're trying to save money or cut a budget, it can create a crisis. If he knows that you're getting stronger, he will start a new angle to knock you back down. So the more of your life you keep inside of your body, when you stop speaking your plan out loud because it becomes a target, that is also risk management. It is not one decision. It feels like 100,000 small paper cuts that keep you alive inside of a structure that punishes you for independence. Now, this is when the self-talk starts because you're exhausted and you want it to be simpler than this. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You should just leave if it's that bad. You're still calculating what leaving would cost. You're still aware that leaving without money can be a secondary emergency. You know escalation has a pattern, and you're aware that being right does not protect you from consequences. This is why I refuse to call it indecision and I call it risk management. Your body is trying to keep the day from getting worse while you live inside limited options. And the shame comes from thinking this means that you are weak. It doesn't. It means that you've learned how expensive it is to be honest when you're financially exposed and emotionally punished. After I had my son, I thought the abuse might decrease, but it was the polar opposite. I was depleted in that season and my body and mind had less capacity to just bounce back. These types of experiences are ones that you will not forget, and it teaches you something very quickly, that escalation costs you more than what it costs him. So you start shutting down, you start containing. You no longer bring things up or ask for what you need or share how you actually feel. You don't even realize you are doing this because it becomes so automatic. This is you protecting your capacity in a very controlled environment. This is also why women can feel very clear in one conversation and then disappear the next. People like to call it inconsistency. It is risk management. Something shifted, the mood, the threat, the money, the capacity. She did not lose her clearness. She lost the window where clarity was safe to act on. Risk management keeps you functional in the short term, but it can keep you stuck long term if nobody helps you build conditions. Your body and your nervous system is not choosing him. It is choosing predictability, stability, and time. And this is very important because they assume that freezing is an act of love. They interpret the fear as attachment or the delay as not being intelligent enough to leave. Your body is tracking aftermath. If you've lived through abuse, escalation, manipulation, coercion, your nervous system remembers it. So why does your body choose the safer option even when you feel like you're done? Your body is not choosing him. Your body is choosing stability, predictability, and time. A lot of women blame themselves for what their body does under pressure. They interpret freezing as love, or fear as attachment, or delay as weakness, when your body is really just tracking aftermath. If you've lived through escalation, financial punishment, retaliation, or being destabilized when you try to assert yourself, your nervous system is going to remember that. So when you think about leaving, your mind might be focused on the relationship, but your body is more focused on what happens after you make a move. A lot of my clients have said to me, I know it's abuse, but I feel like I can't leave. And they usually think the problem is fear. They treat it like proof that they're not ready. But the reality is, fear is often the proof your body has receipts of. It shows up in different forms, and fear will show up in different forms of narcissistic relationships. And when you do not understand which one is driving you, you will call yourself crazy instead of strategic. One of the fears is retaliation. It's not an imagined thing, it's a pattern recognition. You see what happens when you disagree, when you take up space, when you try to detach. So even thinking about leaving activates your system because your body is preparing for that impact from that person. Another form of fear is the collapse. This is the one that women tend to hide from because they think it makes them sound shallow. It doesn't. It actually makes them honest. Collapsed fear is the bank account. It's the car. It's childcare. It's rent. It's knowing you can't move if you have to go now, and you can't go anywhere if you cannot afford it. It's that sick feeling of realizing one unexpected expense could keep you stuck there for months. Your nervous system cannot ignore that. It's literally doing its job. Another fear is the story. This is the fear of not being believed or being painted as unstable or being the problem. Women usually feel this before they even hit court, before they tell anyone, because they've already lived the narrative flip inside of the relationship. I just had a conversation about this with my client this afternoon. They have watched their reality get twisted. They see how quickly your feelings become the evidence to use against you. This fear is why so many women keep quiet. They're not hiding because they're loyal. They are hiding because they know how expensive it is to be seen as emotional in a world that rewards the calm performance. Fears stacked together, retaliation, collapse, and the story. When you think about leaving, your mind might be thinking about freedom, but your body is thinking about consequences. That's why the safer option could look like staying even when staying is not safe. It's not because you want this life, it's because your nervous system is protecting you from an outcome you're not resourced to handle yet. You cannot bully yourself into courage. The answer is to build the conditions that make those fears less powerful. Stabilization reduces the hijack on your nervous system. Financial leverage reduces the exposure. When the conditions change, your body stops screaming at you to choose the safest option. Your body knows what happens when you don't have enough money. It knows what it looks like when you have nowhere to go and still have to keep functioning. It knows what it sounds like when you have to parent with no margin. It knows what it feels like to be exhausted and afraid at the same time. So your fear of losing access to resources that you have while keeping your face steady is why the safe option can look like staying, even when it's risky. It's also why fear shows up after you feel very certain. When you think about the logistics, your body is going to light up. A lot of people will misread this reaction as a sign that they're in the wrong. They tell themselves if they were truly ready, they would not feel scared. Fear is not proof that you're wrong. It's proof that the stakes are real. You can want out and still be scared of the aftermath. You can be done emotionally and still panic when you look at your bank account. You can know it's abuse and still freeze when consequences show up in your mind. The problem here is not that your body chooses the safer option. The problem is when safe becomes stuck because there's no bridge between where you are and where you need to be. That's where women start blaming themselves instead of seeing the obvious truth. They need conditions that offer them stabilization so they can stop abandoning themselves under pressure so that leverage options become real. This is the bridge that I teach, and that's why I talk about both the RRR membership and Freelance to Freedom in the same podcast. I've had this conversation with several different clients over the last week, and I did touch on it in the last podcast episode, but I feel like it's really important to speak on this with all of you. Shame doesn't create movement, it creates hiding. It stops you from telling your truth because you don't want anyone to look at you like you're stupid, and that's why women are called things like delusional, pathetic, attached. I even had a comment on TikTok this past week calling abuse codependency. It lands in a way where they already feel embarrassed that they haven't made a move yet to leave, and now they're trapped and ashamed of being stuck, and the shame becomes another cage. It makes you isolate when you're tired of explaining why you're still there. It makes you perform healing while your real life stays the same because your conditions have not changed. Women often heal in circles but don't actually have any forward momentum. They watch more content, they read more, they journal more, they analyze more, hoping the right piece of information is going to make them feel brave enough. Being brave is not the missing piece. Options are. When you don't have options, you start blaming yourself for not having the emotional capacity to do something about your life that is not set up to hold it yet. If all of your logistics are tied to him, housing, transportation, money, daycare, you are not failing, you are under-resourced, and the goal is not to shame yourself out of risk management. The goal is to turn risk management into strategy by building conditions that will change your life. Staying has a cost that most people will never talk about because it's not a single event. It is a very slow daily tax. You pay it in your body first. Your shoulders never drop, your jaw stays tight, you sleep but you don't get rest. You're tired in a way that doesn't get fixed by one good night because the problem isn't really fatigue, it's hypervigilance. And your nervous system never fully powers down because it never knows what's coming next. You will also pay a very slow tax with your identity. You stop saying what you think because you don't want the blowout, and then you stop knowing what you think because you've swallowed it so many times. Your decisions are no longer your own wants or needs, and you become a manager of another person, and you're not living life at all. You will pay for it with your time, and I don't mean calendar time, mental time. The hours you spent rehearsing a conversation, predicting a reaction, choosing the least explosive wording, deciding whether today is safe or not. The time doesn't show up on a schedule, but it takes up space in your entire brain. You can be having a conversation, folding laundry, on a phone call, and you're still having that argument in your head. Your body is already preparing, and your mind is in prevention. And of course, you pay for it with your future. You stop letting yourself want too much because it creates pressure. Wanting makes you feel how far you are from what you actually need. It makes you feel more trapped, more reduced. You no longer plan things. You've stopped buying what doesn't belong to you. And you don't picture a different life in detail because the details turn into something that might never happen for you. This is why a lot of women say that they feel flat while they're still inside of the relationship. It's not that they don't care. It's that caring is too expensive when you cannot execute on what you want. Your nervous system learns to go numb, so the present hurts less. You will also pay for it in your relationships. You don't tell the whole truth to people who love you because you don't want them to say what you already know. You don't want pity. You don't want questions. You certainly do not want judgment or advice from someone who's never had to do what you were doing. So you isolate. And now you feel like a lone wolf off in a corner of isolation, which is part of the trap. You will also pay for it with your self-trust. This is one that people do not realize it's happening until you are usually out of it. It is very deep. When you go into an overriding mission that helps you keep the peace with that person, you teach your body a lesson, and the lesson is that your truth is negotiable, that your needs do not matter as much as avoiding consequences, that you cannot trust yourself to protect you. So when you finally say, I need to leave, your body doesn't feel safe with that decision because you've trained it to fold. And that's not necessarily a you problem. You've just been paying a safety tax on your body for a really long time. The worst part is that that tax is invisible to the people giving you the advice. They think staying costs nothing but pride. They do not understand that staying costs you your voice, your nervous system, your ability to plan, to rest, to want things, to feel like a human with your future. So when people say shit like just leave, they're talking to the version of you that exists in their imagination. They're not talking to the version of you that has to pay rent, keep your kids stable, avoid escalation, and have your own sanity. This is why I will never treat risk management like indecision. It is data. So if right now you are paying this tax, your body is telling you the truth. Your body is telling you that you are safe in this relationship, and safe for you means small. Your body is telling you that peace has conditions and that you are no longer living, you are just surviving. And I want that to land home with you before we move into the next part. Because if your body is hijacked by guilt, confusion, and the constant urge to smooth everything over, you don't need something more other than stabilization. You need a place where you stop abandoning yourself in real time, a true emotional exit. If your body is doing risk management because leaving would create a secondary emergency, you cannot shame yourself into bravery. You need leverage and buying power with options that you can actually execute on. That is how the safety tax ends. Not by forcing yourself to feel ready. It ends when the conditions change. So your nervous system can finally believe that forward momentum will not destroy you. A lot of healing content ignores logistics, and a lot of business content assumes safety. This is where most advice fails women in this stage. Healing content can help you name it, understand the trauma bond, and stop gaslighting yourself. But it can also leave you financially exposed, which means your body stays in risk management even when you are in the clear. Business coaching and business content can teach you how to build an income, but it often assumes you are safe to be visible, safe to take risks, safe to fail publicly, safe to experiment. It assumes you have childcare, quiet, that you don't mind building under pressure. So women get stuck in the middle of that. They are doing the emotional work, but they get financially trapped, or they are building money and their body cannot hold it because their nervous system is still in panic mode in containment. This is why I have the Abuse Recovery membership in tandem with Freelance to Freedom. Women need stabilization and leverage, not often one or the other. I said this before earlier, but risk management keeps you alive in the short term. It's your body doing a job in a situation where your consequences is real. The problem is when the risk management becomes your entire life and nobody helps you build that bridge. I mentioned strategy. This is where you're going to stop shaming yourself by protecting your life and start building conditions so the safest option is no longer staying. This bridge has two parts: stabilization, which is for women whose bodies are hijacked by guilt, panic, confusion, and the constant internal tug of war. She knows something is wrong, but she can't hold on to her truth without getting pulled back into the same abusive loop. The Reinvent, Rebuild, Redeem membership is an emotional exit. It is nervous system stabilization, trauma bond recovery, identity repair, and self-trust. It's the work that helps a woman stop abandoning herself in real time, and the place where she learns to stop outsourcing reality and stop letting guilt be steering the wheel. The second part of this is leverage. This is for the woman who already knows what this is. She's not looking for more proof. She is not stuck in confusion like she was before, but she feels stuck because she is financially trapped. Her nervous system continues to do risk management because she doesn't have enough buying power to move safely. This is why Freelance to Freedom exists. I have a whole episode on how I built a business inside of an abusive marriage. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should go and watch that. Because the first month making money in my business, my nervous system changed in a way that I can still feel to today. It was proof of everything. And it moved my exit out of fantasy back into reality. There was no more hoping. I had evidence in my own hands. The certainty made me focused, it made planning more real, and the next steps felt more executable. Fear got quiet because my options were in my own hands. I no longer felt the same fear because I had options. That is what leverage does. It's not just a number in your bank account. It actually changes how your nervous system believes what is possible. Buying power is not a luxury inside of abuse recovery. It's what changes what your body believes you can survive. Financial stress is the worst type of stress a human being can experience. And if you are in a situation where you're being financially abused, your whole life feels like a cliff. Every decision has a drop. Every boundary has a price. And even when you're out and in the clear, your nervous system is still scanning for something because it doesn't want to pay for your next move. That's why women can understand the relationship perfectly and still stay. Your mind understands it, but your life is not resourced, so your body keeps choosing that option that keeps you functional. Buying power changes that. Now, it doesn't make you fearless, but it gives your nervous system evidence that you have a way out. If you're stuck somewhere between having the stabilization and the financial understanding, a lot of women will also get stuck here because it's exhausting. They have to get ready every single time and talk themselves into it, then reality will hit and they talk themselves out of it. Having buying power will actually break that cycle because your brain doesn't have to run on emotional fuel, it runs on evidence. This is why I will always keep financial autonomy inside of abuse recovery. Money is not separate to your nervous system. When you do not have options, your body stays on alert. When you start building options, your body will begin to settle because it has something to concentrate on. This is what stage 2 abuse recovery actually is. This is why leverage changes everything. It doesn't just create freedom later, it creates stability now because your body can finally feel the difference between clarity and capability. Freelance to Freedom is your exit infrastructure. It's financial autonomy built in a way that respects the reality of where you're living right now. It is how to build a virtual assistant business from home with your own skills, in privacy, and options. I can say these things confidently because that's how I did it and that's how I got out. I've now helped hundreds of women do the same. I want you to try and locate yourself within this episode without making it super complicated because the fastest way to get stuck is to keep treating every single problem like it needs the same kind of support. If your body is still in chaos, the problem isn't that you need more discipline. It's that your nervous system is still being hijacked, and you will recognize this because you keep rewriting your reality after conversations. In the moments you know what happened, you will later start bargaining with yourself. You negotiate. You start explaining his behavior better than he ever has. You end up apologizing for reacting and hating yourself for apologizing. That cycle happens when your self-trust has been trained out of you. You will recognize it because guilt controls your choices, not because you love guilt, but it's being used as a leash to keep you stuck. You can feel your body move towards compliance before it even thinks. You smooth things over to make the anxiety stop, then you get disgusted with yourself because you know that you did it again. You will recognize this because peace feels unsafe. A calm day doesn't stay calm to you. Your body is always on edge because your life has come with a trapdoor. That's why you can be sitting in a quiet room and still waiting for something to happen. If this sounds like you, your next step is stabilization and an emotional exit. That is the RRR membership. You get to rebuild self-trust, stop abandoning yourself in real time, get your nervous system under you so your choices aren't being made from panic. If you already know what this is, you are not confused, and you're tired of listening to content that explains your life without changing it, then money is probably the bottleneck. Not because you're shallow, because your life is still getting exposed. You are doing risk management because you do not have buying power. Freelance to freedom is leverage. It's where you build income from home in a way that respects the reality that you are currently living. You will no longer have to wait for the perfect moment and start creating options. Your body will start to relax because you're no longer relying on him for basic survival. You can be done in your mind and still unable to move because your life is financially exposed. You are not stuck because you can't let go. You are stuck because leaving without leverage can create a second emergency, and you just cannot afford that. You will recognize this because you live in timing. You wait for the window where the cost might be smaller. You keep thinking you might get one more calm stretch, one more paycheck, one more bit of stability, one more peace in place. That is not laziness, that is risk management without resources. You'll recognize it because the idea of income allows you to breathe, not because you're excited about business, but because buying power feels like safety. And the moment you picture money that's yours, your nervous system will actually get quieter. It's your body telling you where the real bottleneck is. And if that's you, your next step is freelance to freedom, where I show you how to build financial autonomy and options in a way that respects the way that you're living. Freelance to Freedom is a program that will help you build a virtual assistant business online so you can build financial autonomy and options in a way that helps you actually leave. Some women also need both, and that's completely normal. Stabilization makes leverage easier to hold. Leverage makes stabilization easier to feel. The question isn't which one sounds better, it's what's driving your stuckness right now. Two things can be true at once. Someone can be building leverage while still needing stabilization. You can be stabilizing while quietly building leverage. The point isn't to pick a label, it's to pick a name and what is driving your stuckness right now. I teach both healing and logistics, nervous system and buying power. Nobody else can do this. I teach the bridge. Risk management is not love. It's your body trying to keep you alive until your conditions change. Now I have shown you two different pathways where you can actually build those conditions. If this episode cracks something open in you, good. That means you are not just listening, you are waking up. Please share this with another woman who needs to hear it. Hit follow so you do not miss the next one. Send me a DM on Instagram and tell me what landed the hardest for you. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast, where you stop negotiating the trap and start becoming impossible to control.